Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Kayla and I'm autistic and watching my daughter sleep on the monitor. I currently make videos about my autism related stuff, mental health stuff, health stuff. I was going to make a part 2 to my medical history drama, but I didn't feel like doing that. I wanted to do this video because I am in full burnout. Haven't had a whole lot of energy or time to film. I'm doing this while my daughter is asleep, to which she could wake up any moment. That's also why I'm downstairs, just to kind of get away from her room so I don't accidentally wake her up. And also just be in my favorite room of my house. This is my favorite room. It's the cafe. I designed it myself. It makes me feel happy. In this video, I'm going to most likely ramble and be incoherent. You get what you get. Gonna kind of talk about past burnout and then how that compares to burnout in motherhood. Hello and welcome to the future. I had to go upstairs because my daughter woke up. I fell asleep. It's 2 days later. I thought about refilming that beginning intro part, but I feel like it's kind of hitting home that burnt out feeling. It also just demonstrates how hard it is to get these types of things done sometimes. Even though making these videos has been very therapeutic and cathartic for me, like I say in other videos, it still requires mental energy, time, that inevitably is worth it in the end. It just can be very hard going, sludgy, walking through mud kind of feeling sometimes. Let's get into it. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, I've recently been diagnosed with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. As an adult, I am 31 years old. So a lot of my experiences have been kind of retrospective, looking back on my life and attributing certain events, times that were difficult, everything down to like a very minute detail, like why I didn't like a certain food, to why I felt I couldn't connect with anybody on a deep level. Burnout is one of those things that I figured out I had gone through several times in my life for various different amounts of time. I've also had major depressive episodes, and now that I kind of understand the differences, understand the feelings within myself, I can separate those two into distinct moments, which is very enlightening to say the least, because to think you've either had some sort of chronic fatigue type of syndrome, which a couple doctors told me that I had, to another doctor telling me that I had fibromyalgia, or just attributing the sensations, the feelings to PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or dysmenorrhea, and not really getting a whole picture on what was really going on. Autistic burnout is one of those things that's very important within the community of autistics, community of people who are close to autistics, but it's not well understood, it's not well studied. It's generally marked in very similar ways as career burnout or school burnout, a similar feeling of exhaustion, difficulty getting tasks done, tasks started, just an overall air of like everything feeling really hard in a state of like survival. The biggest difference between my depressive episodes and autistic burnout that's very apparent to me, while they mirror each other in a lot of ways, burnout doesn't really have those cyclical negative self-talk patterns or the hopelessness, helpless kind of feelings that the depressive episodes have. I've definitely had a burnout situation that inevitably triggered a depressive episode. I don't really know if that's a common thing or if other people experience that too, but that's definitely happened to me in the past. Again, I can only speak from my experience. It kind of feels like it sneaks up on you. You're slowly starting to walk uphill without realizing the grade has changed, until all of a sudden the grade is extremely vertical and you realize, like, oh shit, I'm like on this vertical path, I'm about to fall, and every step or climb or crawl forward is like exceedingly more difficult. Even the smallest things feel really overwhelming. My executive dysfunction issues get worse. I forget to eat or drink. I tend to be excessively tired, so working out goes out the window, even though it's one of those things that makes me feel good. I don't have the energy for that at all. My capacity for any kind of mental stimulation goes down. This was especially tough in schools when I would have burnout. Trying to study, trying to keep up with my coursework was extremely difficult, and my grades would suffer because of it. I never failed out of college because of it, thankfully. I know I'm lucky in that regard. But there was definitely a huge difference between grades, between just my overall study patterns when I was in burnout in school versus when I wasn't. Another thing that I deal with is a lessening in my cognitive speech abilities and decision-making abilities. I am unable to make even the simplest decisions. Like, my husband's like, do you want a cranberry flavored seltzer water or a grape flavored seltzer water? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't make even the simplest decisions. I can sort of if I'm forced to, but it's very difficult. My cognitive speech abilities are definitely lessened as well, and my husband the other day was like, speak in full sentences. And I'm like, I would love to. I want to speak in full sentences. It's just not happening. My sensory sensitivities, either those get worse or my tolerance for managing dealing with them gets lessened, or both. It seems like both. It seems like I'm extremely hypersensitive times a million to what I normally am, and I'm unable to tolerate them as well as I usually am when I'm not in burnout. I also withdrawal socially, so any kind of social interactions are just mind-numbingly awful to deal with when I'm in burnout. Just awful. And I will usually only do things during that time that I am either extremely socially obligated to do, even though it irritates me, or it's something mandatory that I have to do, for example, school or a job or something that I have to go to. Then I will kind of force myself to do it. But I will try to eliminate social stress as much as possible, just inadvertently. So as I'm walking slowly uphill, I'm slowly closing myself off from people in order of importance. It sounds bad, but that's the way it is. I don't know. So to friends of mine, it probably seems like I just completely drop off the face of the earth and don't exist for months or weeks, at a time. I will take days to answer texts if I do answer them. Even that seems like it's too much effort. I feel like it's one of those things that only people who have gone through autistic burnout type situation understand that. It's one of those things that neurotypicals or people who haven't felt anything like this have a hard time understanding. And I totally get it. It seems like I'm a terrible friend, or I'm a terrible sister, or I'm a terrible whatever. And I'm like purposely ignoring you because I'm trying to like be mean or something, when it's honestly just I am like running at a 99.9% like capacity level of being able to cope with anything at a realistic level. And a text is even like a lot for me to handle. Along those lines too, with burnout, my ability to emotionally regulate or handle like everyday stressors, and especially big stressors that happen, which, you know, this is life. It's things are going to happen that are stressful that you can't predict. And the ability for me to cope with those stressors and to not overreact emotionally to things, my ability to do that goes way down too. So that's another reason why I kind of like socially isolate, is because I will just have either more meltdowns or these like short outbursts that kind of seem out of proportion to what's going on. Well, they are out of proportion to what's going on. I'm aware of that, but they don't feel that way to me at the time. One particularly bad burnout, when I was in my mid-20s, I was still living at home, working full-time. I was so exhausted that all I could do was sleep, get up, go to work, come home, sleep, until like the next morning. It was everything I could do within myself to maybe eat one meal a day, or eat something a day, drink water, you know, enough that I was, you know, staying alive, you know, shower. Sometimes in those periods, like I couldn't even be bothered to like brush my hair or do much in the effort of like self-grooming. Again, it's just like everything feels really, really hard. Basic stuff that seems basic to a lot of people. I know not everyone. Just feels really, really tough. So what's the difference in motherhood? There isn't a difference in the way that I'm feeling burnout. It's the exact same. I just can't sleep all day. I can't ignore my nutritional needs. I can't not drink plenty of water. And I can't rest really in the way that my body probably demands it. Because I am breastfeeding, I need to make sure my calorie intake is good. I need to make sure I'm eating well. I need to make sure I'm drinking and getting enough water, fluids, in order to feed my baby properly. I'm also getting broken up, very minimal sleep every night. I'm even more socially withdrawn because I'm even past that like 99.9 threshold. Like I'm at like 100 a lot of the time, and maybe it goes down a little bit when I get an extra nap, or she sleeps decent one night out of, you know, a week, that I get a little boost and my 100% goes down a little bit. But it's not like I'm resting at that 99.9 and then there's that tiny little straw that happens and now I'm at 100. It's like I'm at 100 for days and days and days, barely holding on, and then I do get a little bit of rest, or I do get a little bit of self-care, and that goes down. That threshold does go down a little bit when my daughter makes me laugh, or she does something new that's exciting, or we have those really sweet moments where she's not trying to do gymnastics while we're breastfeeding and she's just kind of looking up at me, connecting. And those really special moments really help to lessen that load as well. So those are like the main big difference between dealing with burnout, you know, not a mother, and dealing with burnout as a mother. I also have so much support from my husband. It's ridiculous. I don't know what I would do without him. He's the best, honestly. Like, I feel so lucky and grateful and so much gratitude to have him in my life. I tell him all the time, trust me. He's watching her right now, so I can film this video for me, even though he's working. And it's just, he's the best. And that support is everything to me. As far as avoiding burnout or improving symptoms, I guess, is honestly just being really attuned to my well-being and giving myself the patience and just empathy to take those breaks or unplug when I need to and not overloading myself. Telling friends, family what's going on. Hopefully they understand, and just letting them know, hey, I'm gonna be off the map for a little bit. That's just what I need right now. Boundary setting is extremely important during these times, and all the time, honestly. And sometimes there really is no way to avoid it. It's just gonna happen. I don't know if there's any way you can avoid a burnout. Nothing that I've tried has helped alleviate that pattern. Understanding it is helpful in the way of coping and mediating some of those difficult symptoms, but I don't know if avoiding it or making it not happen is something that's realistic for me. I think that is a good place to wrap up. Thanks for watching. Be kind to yourself, love yourself, and catch you on the flip side.